Three children and a grandmother have been killed after an Israeli airstrike hit a civilian car in southern Lebanon. The mother is severely injured. Lebanon's foreign minister says the country will submit a complaint to the United Nations over the killing of civilians. Hezbollah said it fired rockets into Israel in response. An Israeli civilian was killed in the northern Israeli town of Kiryat Shimona. The Israeli army claimed it had hit a vehicle identified as a suspected transport for terrorists. And for more on this, let's bring in our Rise chief correspondent, John Cookson, who's been monitoring development from London and he joins us live. John, thank you for joining us here on Newsday. Now, let's start it off by saying, what's the latest you're hearing about the Israeli army's assaults on Gaza?
Good to see you. Well, I think the top line today is that Israel is saying that it is planning to enter Gaza City itself in the next 48 hours, which will be a major development. It's claiming to have cut Gaza in two, into a north and south divide, with its troops controlling areas to the north down to the Gaza River. You remember that's the evacuation point from a couple of weeks ago when Israel ordered Gazans to move from north to south. Sadly, there are around 900,000 Palestinians still in the north of the Gaza Strip, and if the Israelis do go ahead and enter Gaza City, the casualties have got to be huge, and possibly on both sides, because it's a very dangerous move for the Israeli army to work in that environment. So I suppose that's the big development today, this announcement by Israel that it plans to move into Gaza City, the biggest conurbation in a strip some 45 kilometers long, which contains 2 million people. Still, even after at least 3 weeks of conflict since October the 7th.
Right now, of course, there's been another night of violence in the occupied West Bank. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, well, you got the main headlines from the report you read just a short time ago. Look, the West Bank has been a place of tension for decades now, frankly, since 1967. And I've been in the West Bank at these times, and night time is the worst time for deaths of Palestinians at the hands of Israeli police or Israeli settlers. And it's just an ongoing violent cycle that happened in the West Bank. One man was shot dead, I understand, last night, a Palestinian, but at least 150 Palestinians have lost their lives in the last 3 weeks ago, and those tensions will continue for the foreseeable future. The Palestinian Prime Minister has been on television, Mr. Shataya, condemning a statement from an Israeli minister over the weekend, which hinted that Israel ought to drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza and bring an end to the conflict. And Prime Minister Shataya has roundly condemned that statement. Also, tensions, as you alluded to, in the occupied East Jerusalem, the gates of the old city, a 16-year-old shot dead, having stabbed 2 Israeli policemen. This is a repetition of something that happened a couple of weeks ago, and these lone wolf attacks by Israeli Arabs, I'm sure, will continue as long as the conflict in Gaza goes on.
All right. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been in the Turkish capital today. What sort of reception did he get?
Very cool reception, and to be absolutely frank, the shuttle diplomacy that Blinken's been on in the last 2 or 3 weeks around the Middle East hasn't really produced very much. The problem with Turkey is that Turkey is calling for an immediate ceasefire by Israel, whereas the Americans will want what they call a humanitarian pause in the bombing. So there's a huge difference there between the Americans and the Turks. Blinken wants to try to persuade the Turks to put pressure on Hamas to release hostages. But given the reception that he got today, which was all warm handshakes and smiles, but behind the scenes, things are pretty cool at the moment. And normally Blinken would meet with President Erdogan of Turkey, but that's not on the agenda for today. Another sign of tensions between America and the Turks.
And of course, on the backdrop of that, the calls for a ceasefire continue to grow ever louder. Do you think Israel will listen at any point?
You know, we see these pictures every day, do we not? And you just aired a poignant statement from that lady, a Palestinian lady, calling for an end to the bombing, and who couldn't be failed to be moved by that. And we've seen, as I say, daily images similar to that, and the deaths of Palestinians. And you know, the calls will continue, but Israel, frankly, is on a military roll right now. If it says that it's going to enter Gaza City in the next 48 hours, nothing's going to stop that. The wheels are in motion. So I'm afraid all these calls, including by the UN, will be listened to by Israel, but frankly will be completely ignored.
Completely ignored, you say. I want to say many thanks to you, John Cookson, for bringing us up to speed with the latest happening in Gaza.